Hi everyone! Thank you so much for joining us for the Q&A of Vinyl Nation. I hope you all enjoyed watching the film, and please remember that this film is up for an audience award, so don't forget to rate this film and others when you're done watching them. I want to start off by thanking the sponsors of this film, 93.3 KZOZ, and our major sponsors, VHE Renewables, American General Media, and KSBY. We wouldn't be able to do this without you, so thank you. Now, I'd like to introduce our guests for today. We have Christopher Boone and Kevin Smokler, both director and producer for the film. Thank you so much for doing this Q&A with our viewers.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Would you let our viewers know where you are talking to us from? Where are you located today?
San Francisco, California.
And I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Awesome. Great. So I just wanted to kind of start off the conversation by asking how you came to make this film. What was your connection to record stores? Did you have one? How did it come about?
This is Kevin. Chris and I are old college classmates. We're 2 years apart. We didn't overlap much in college. We had some interests in common, but I wouldn't say we were there long enough together to become the best of friends or anything. We are both second generation record people, i.e., each of us was a bit too young to be into records when records were the only game in town. So we both came to records as grown-ups. I came to records in 2007 when I inherited a cheap turntable from somebody, and Chris a bit later than that. I had been wondering since 2007 what we could take from the idea of the comeback of records, an old technology that was suddenly new again. And by the time we started talking about the idea, the comeback of records was 10 years old, and so if we were going to do anything about it, there was no movie to be made asking, well, why are records here all of a sudden? Like that question had been debated to death already. So the question we were left with, which I think we both found far more interesting than that, was, what does it mean? What does it mean that an old technology left for dead so many years ago, which we later found out was not actually dead at all, became considered sort of the platonic ideal of how we listen to music and what our experience is with music, and how that changed our relationship with each other, with music kind of at the center. And that's that didn't answer like how it happened, but that answered more like what we were thinking when we started getting it going. Chris, you want to pick it up from
Yeah,
there?
I'll pick it up from there. So Kevin came to me in, I think, like March of 2018 with this kernel of an idea, and I definitely was intrigued by it. He already had the title Vinyl Nation. I think that spoke volumes about what he had hoped we might be able to accomplish. Like Kevin said, I also came to records late, maybe like 2014 or so, but I was really interested in the idea because my daughter, who's now 17, she got a turntable when she was like 13 years old, shortly after my wife and I had started getting back into records. And that was fascinating to me. These younger people who never owned music in any physical format whatsoever, they've grown up with iTunes, now Spotify, and now records. And that just blew my mind. So I wanted to learn more about who are these young people like my daughter? Why are they getting back into records? I had my own individual story, but I was kind of curious to see how it would translate all over the country. And so that's really where we started. And then, we kicked it around for a good portion of that year. And I think it was late in 2018 when we realized, hey, I think we have something here. We've done a lot of primary research, and I said, hey, it would be great if we could release this film in 2020, thinking, it's going to be a divided time politically. I don't know, maybe we can make a documentary, could bring people together. We had no idea about pandemic. We had no idea about a Capitol siege, none of that.
Seems so naive now.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of got the ball rolling and hustled out the door in 2019 to get it shot. So that's essentially how it came to be after Kevin brought me the idea.
Great. So I have to say, I am a former record store employee. I worked at our local record shop for like 12 years. So I'm very familiar with this world. And something that I noticed as an employee, and also that you show so beautifully in the film, is sort of like how widespread, truly a vinyl nation this is. You talk to all sorts of folks, all kinds of people from all walks of life want to, listen to records and buy records and work in the field. how did you find the folks to talk to? Like how did you sort of, you had the kernel of an idea, you decide you're going to do it. How did you find these people to talk to?
Uh, Chris and I decided very early on that we were going to have sort of a no celebrity policy. Not only because we thought we were going to spend a lot of time and money trying to get celebrities booked, and we didn't have because we were going to be shooting in multiple places all around the country, we didn't have the liberty to have kind of a capricious schedule based on a super busy famous person's schedule. And also, like, if we were going to have nation in the title, it had to look something like this nation that we were talking about. So we knew we were going to have to go to a lot of places. Everybody in there is a degree of separation or less from one of us, someone we know. And we knew that the story of a grumpy white guy with facial hair sneering at you because you don't know what pressing plant the first MC5 album came from, like, is been told already. Like maybe not that specific story, but that's High Fidelity and Ghost World and a lot of other associations we have in popular culture with record stores. We didn't need to make a documentary about that. That's been done. And we also felt like that wasn't really the story of the comeback of records. We had this really untested idea that the comeback of records also meant the widening of the kinds of people who were out and proud about being interested in records. And that was true. I think it helped, and Chris can probably speak to this, I think it helped that we consciously went looking for those kinds of people.
Yeah. I was sorry. I didn't mean to jump on you there,
No,
but yeah,
no,
I was just going to pick it up. Like I said, to your point, like Tasha, it's great to hear that you worked at a record store for 12 years. I think a lot of people still have that anachronistic view of like, oh, record stores are just the domain of these old white men and they scare people away and they're unfriendly places to go shop. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And so, like Kevin was saying, not only did we want to dispel that myth, but also we went looking for those people. So we consciously looked for record store owners who were women or people of color, just different. And that led us essentially to a lot of the people that we ended up interviewing who were record store owners. And like Kevin said, we didn't necessarily know all of those people, but maybe we knew somebody who knew somebody. And then we did our own research to find that. But once we started reaching out to people we thought would be interesting subjects, we would then ask them, okay, who should we be talking to that it's in your network? And that invariably led to another 5 people that we had to reach out to. And while we planned meticulously for this film, even when we were out on the road, phone calls were being made by not only by us, but also by our interview subjects, like right after the fact. And sometimes we were picking up interviews like a day or two in advance just because that was the first time we could get a door open because somebody was kind enough after our interview to say, I really like what you guys are doing. You know who you should talk to? This person over here. So we slotted those in as best we could.
So you mentioned a little bit about the timeline of making the film and releasing the film. And it's kind of making me wonder, what kind of challenges did you face in making this film? How were you affected by the pandemic? Were you, maybe talk a little bit about that.
We were fortunate.
Or any challenge. Yeah. Doesn't have to be pandemic related.
No, we were fortunate that the making of it was done by the time we were all locked down. I think we tied the bow on it February of 2020. How's that for timing?
Yeah.
Wow.
And but I think the biggest challenge of making it was the fact that we needed to go physically to a lot of different places to make a movie that was convincingly called Vinyl Nation. If we had done a movie about the new nation of people who love records and had gone to New York, Nashville, and Austin and New Orleans and called it a day, that would have been not really representative of anything. So we had to go to a lot of different places, and we had to typically clump the people we spoke to within those geographic areas. We just didn't have the resources to go to all the places we wanted to go to, all the places we know are fabulous record corners of America. And we find out about more of those like every day. Like nothing makes us happier than to get a note from a record store in Sioux City, South Dakota being like, we know how to push wax here in Sioux City. And we're like, we absolutely trust that you do. Like, we just think that's the coolest thing. And so it also meant that if we met someone who was great and we really wanted in the movie, if they didn't live in one of those places that we were going already, we were just out of luck. Like, and that happened a few times. Like we didn't meet someone from Nome, Alaska or something like that, but there was definitely times where we met someone and where they was just like over here when we were over here, and we couldn't include them in the film.
Yeah, I would say our biggest challenge, like Kevin was saying, wasn't really even during the making of it or even post-production, but was that we finished everything in February 2020, and then all of a sudden the pandemic landed on us. And so, you know, we had these grand ideas of, oh, maybe we'll premiere at a festival in the spring, and we were going to do a summer road show and go back to all these cities where we filmed and bring the movie out to the people there, and then maybe have some sort of a release in the fall. And that just got turned totally upside down. And so we kind of been joking that we're doing our release absolutely backwards. Like you typically do at least like a festival and you hope for distribution, or you do some sort of roadshow and that. And I was like, okay, now what? So like the first time anyone saw our movie was on what would have been Record Store Day weekend in April 2020, when we partnered with over 200 record stores in the US and said, hey, if you can sell tickets to our movie, we'll make it available for one weekend only, and you get to keep all the ticket proceeds. Like we won't even keep a dime. And that went really, really well. And a ton of people saw our movie in a weird premiere that never would have happened any other way. And so that was really wonderful. But then it was like, well, now what? And so then we went through the whole rigmarole of let's do a virtual cinema release. And we were able to learn from filmmakers that are already doing that. And then because of awesome film festivals like SLO Film Fest, we're now doing our festival run. We're literally playing in a ton of festivals this spring after we've had a virtual cinema release. And we're so thrilled that we could work with SLO Film Fest earlier to do a fundraiser with you because our film had already been out there. And yeah, it's been weird how like we've reached out to festivals and say, would you still be willing to show us? And they said, yeah, we would love to check your film out. And if we like it, we'll program it. And we keep finding out that it's doing well that way. So yeah, it's been excellent to go and support the festivals with our film, not only get out to the audience, but really support you guys. And so that's meant a lot to us because festivals mean a lot to us as well. So we're happy to be going backwards with our release. It's been really fun, and we're really happy to keep meeting great festivals and audiences through festivals as well.
We were actually, I should say, we were actually a little embarrassed when we started applying to festivals, because we'd done this crazy thing like releasing the movie like virtually before and partnering with both movie theaters and non-movie theaters. And then I had this idea with Chris. I was like, these are weird times. Like maybe festivals are feeling as weird as we are, and maybe they're willing to experiment. And so we kind of walked around, sort of tentatively knocking on doors, like, hello, we did this. We did this stupid thing with our movie. Will you? Is it okay? Can we apply? and most of the festivals were like, yeah, man, that's cool. Like we don't get what's going on either. So like we're all in an experimental mood, and we have really been. I would say I'm going to speak for both of us here, Chris, and I would say we've been incredibly moved by how fast on their feet festivals have been, and how committed they are to providing great movies for their communities, even though like basically no one can go to a movie theater at the present time. So we just think it's awesome. We're our happiness is only tempered by the fact that we can't get on a plane and go to the far corners of America, to all the festivals that have been kind enough to include Vinyl Nation in their programming. But as soon as we can.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying all that. That's very kind. And I think, I feel fortunate to work in the sort of arts world during this pandemic, because really I feel like everyone's been so generous, and it's so many creative people willing to experiment, as you said, Kevin, and just make it happen for each other. So I think maybe I'll close with a question, and then if you want to share anything else with our viewers, my last question would just sort of be, what did you learn from working on this film and making this film, whether it's film related or life related? What was your takeaway?
Ooh, too many. Chris, do you want to go first, or do you want me to speak without thinking?
No, I'll go first. So between the two of us, I was the one who had actually made films before, but this is my first documentary. And I'd always thought I would make one, but I had never pursued it. So when Kevin approached me with the idea, I was certainly excited to do that. I guess I probably that two. I relearned one lesson and then learned a new one. The lesson I relearned is that, you know, the editing is the final rewrite, and then with documentaries, it is the writing essentially. And I come to film from a writing background, as does Kevin actually. And so I've been screenplays, I've done a narrative work, I've made a narrative film that I wrote. So I'm used to having all that lined up first, and it was interesting to kind of jump into a process and try to come up with an outline, and we literally laid out album tracks and how we would populate that with the interview subjects. But of course, once you get into the edit, it kind of all goes out the window. And so really working with two fantastic editors, you know, Jason Welling and David Fabello, and trusting their instincts, and they had any documentaries before that, and coming to it with what we thought the story was going to be as well, and kind of, you know, merging all of that. You know, I really appreciated kind of relearning the process of editing is writing is the final rewrite. And then the thing I think I learned more than anything, and this is something I think all filmmakers still already know, is just you just have to be flexible. And I think the pandemic has demonstrated that for all creatives, especially filmmakers. And again, it landed on us after we had finished. So I'm glad that Kevin and I have been able to be flexible with how we release the film and get it out there. And again, I think Vinyl Nation has reached more people at this point in time, I think, than either of us would have expected. And we sincerely hope it'll reach many more people. But by being flexible, we've had a really good run so far. So I think those are the two lessons I've learned. Kevin, what have you learned in the time that I've been sharing my lessons?
I mean, it's kind of a riff on the last thing you said, Chris. It's like what I learned is there's always a solution. Like we were incredibly fortunate for the conditions under which this movie was made. I.e., Chris and I had never worked together before, and we work really well together. We had never worked with our cinematographer, Sherry Koch, and the three of us worked really well together. We were incredibly fortunate as to how much the people we interviewed were interested in the project, and that we didn't end up, you know, I don't know, stranded by the side of the road somewhere with our, like no great tragedies happened for a shoot that could have had many of them. And then we finished the movie in 2020 and tried to release it at possibly the worst possible time you could try and get a movie into people's hands. And here we are almost a year later, and we feel like we're just getting started. And that wasn't because we're geniuses, and we were like, oh yeah, you know, you throw a rock, you give us a lemon tree, we'll make it into lemonade. Like, that wasn't the deal. Like, we just kept saying to ourselves, okay, there's got to be another way. Like and there always was, because and we were fortunate in that we made a movie that was a thing that people like and enjoy. I think even if we'd made something that was divisive and political, we could probably have found another way, but it was a lot easier when you were talking about something like records, which people don't have much of an objection to. So, so I think, yeah, I would say to anybody who wants to make a movie and has not, that's the lens you got to go in with. Like, there is always another way, because you will always be faced with something that seems insurmountable, and it never is.
Thank you so much. Those are beautiful things to learn from a craft perspective and a life perspective, I think. Are there any other thoughts, final things you want to share with our viewers, or anything you want to say?
Just that, to everybody in SLO land, I am insanely jealous that San Luis Obispo is the home of the greatest college radio station in the known universe, and a constellation of great record stores to support it. San Luis Obispo is a fantastic music town. I wish it was closer to San Francisco.
Yeah, I would just say to support your local record stores. They need your business. They want your business. And there are many ways you can do that online, or probably in person with just a few people in the store. Figure out how you can do it. And if you don't have a turntable after you watch our movie, hopefully you want to buy one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin and Christopher, and for sharing your film Vinyl Nation with us. Thank you to our film sponsor, 93.3 KPOZ, and to BHE Renewables, American General Media, and KSBY. One more reminder to get your votes in for our audience awards. Vinyl Nation is eligible for an audience award, so go ahead and vote. And thank you for watching with us.
Thanks for being here,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.